Let's start with Trump's legislative agenda. Now, how significant are his priorities and what challenges could he face in achieving them?
His priorities are extremely significant. Restore the American economy, restore America's energy independence, establish control of the U.S.-Mexico border. These are big challenges. These are big jobs. As far as legislation is concerned, I think that the first thing the president is doing is focusing on what he can do through executive orders to change administration policy as president of the United States before pursuing actual laws passed by Congress, which once achieved are much harder to undo than an executive order.
So Trump's meetings emphasized consolidating party support. Do you think that this approach will effectively quell dissent within the party?
It's going to be an interesting couple of months to see how that worked out. The president has had, for example, unanimous Republican support for most of his cabinet nominees, but Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth could only secure the votes of 50 Republican senators, 50 out of 53, thus creating a tie that had to be broken by Vice President J.D. Vance. And so I think that and on the policy side, there are people who want to do the tax cuts first. There are people who want to secure the border first and establish energy independence first. That's being discussed, negotiated out. The president has his objective. Members of Congress have their objectives. And when you have a 1 or 2 seat majority in the U.S. House of Representatives, as the Republicans do now, and a 3-seat majority in the Senate, where any legislation that doesn't have the support of 60 senators can be blocked. He's got a tough road to hoe, and we will have to see if he can create cohesion and discipline. But Joe Biden did it with much narrower margins than Trump had in Congress in his first 2 years.
The announcement of a $500 billion AI infrastructure investment is bold. How does this align with Trump's broader economic vision?
Well, it's $100 billion for sure, as much as $500 billion. And it is emblematic, I think, of Trump's attitude that America is open for business. That the DEI, diversity, equality, inclusion nonsense, that the environment, social government nonsense, the regulations and the pressure on the finance and business community to what we in the United States refer to as a woke manner is over. And we want to be the place where America, where people overseas are looking to invest their hard-earned dollars, whether you're talking about individuals or sovereign wealth funds, that America is the place you put your money if you want to make more money.
Trump's use of executive orders has been a key tool for implementing his agenda. How effective do you think that this strategy will be?
It's effective up to a point. Executive orders don't have the force of law. They don't apply the entire country or the entire economy. They only apply to the functions of the executive branch. This is the president telling his silo of government what it can or cannot do. And so he put a few things forward, and he repealed a bunch of things that Biden imposed on his first day, much of which repealed stuff that Trump had done over the prior 4 years. It is the tool that is available to him now for direct action.
But isn't this considered authoritarian, Mr. Roff?
Not in the least. Every president uses executive orders. The more that Congress has ground to a halt over the 40 years that I've been in Washington, the more that presidents have had to rely on executive orders to get things done. But again, executive orders don't have the force of law. They are subject to judicial review. And in fact, the Trump executive order on birthright citizenship has already had a stay put on it. It's been stopped by a federal judge. They're going to have to, the Trump administration and people who oppose it are going to have to argue it out in federal court. It will probably end up at the Supreme Court, and they'll decide what, if any, limitations can be put on birthright citizenship. So it's not government by fiat. It's not government by dictate. It's the president saying, for example, that as far as dealings with the executive branch of the U.S. federal government are concerned, there are two genders, male and female. What comedian Dave Chappelle refers to as the alphabet people is out the window. You're either a man or a woman. So for purposes of getting a passport, you're a man or a woman. For filing your taxes, you're a man or a woman. For getting assistance under Medicare or Medicaid, you're a man or a woman.
Yeah,
you join the Army, you're a man or a woman.
Yeah.
And that stays unless it's thrown out in court or Congress passes a law that the president signs that overturns that executive order.
Yeah.
So it's not as though, and as some of my colleagues in the American media have been talking about it, it's not as though the president's word is law. Very much is not. It's a policy dictate that everyone is expected to follow.
Well, thank you for sharing that information regarding executive orders with me. But now, with the slim majority in the House, what risks does Trump face in pushing his legislative agenda?
Well, there's a lot of conversation going on in Washington right now. There is a process on Capitol Hill known as reconciliation, which is part of the budget process, which cannot be blocked by a filibuster in the Senate. A filibuster is a device by which if 60 or more senators are unwilling to approve a piece of legislation moving forward, you can stop it. That a simple majority isn't enough to get it through. And that makes it attractive for doing partisan or controversial things. There are about three things that are on the top of Trump's agenda that the Democrats are opposed to and would, if they could, block from getting through Congress. That is the efforts to restore America's energy independence, the process necessary to secure the U.S.-Mexican border, and the expansion and extension of those parts of the Trump Tax Cuts and Job Act that are set to expire at midnight on December 31st of this year. There are some people, the president wants to do it all in one, as he says, one big, beautiful bill, if that can be done. There are some people, Senator Thune, who leads the Senate, the upper chamber, wants to do the border piece and the energy piece first and do the tax cuts later. There are others, including Speaker Johnson and a number of prominent economists who advise Trump, who want to do the tax cut piece first. Now, usually you can only do reconciliation, but because there wasn't a reconciliation last year, they can do two in this fiscal year. And the people who want to do the tax cut piece first want to do so to give the impact of the tax cuts time to ripen in the economy. If the tax cut piece isn't done early, then individuals and small businesses and corporations will start planning their economics for the coming year as though those tax cuts that are going away will go away. It's the smart, safe thing to do. So if you pass the tax cuts in October, there's no way to change the planning. There's no economic benefit to be had immediately. The economic benefit will produce a political benefit for President Trump and his party. The economy will be strong. People vote jobs, people vote their pocketbook. And that's the reason they argue you need to do it early, so that certainty accompanies it, that people will be able to plan for the next few years, knowing what tax rates are going to be, knowing what the capital gains rate will be, knowing how much of their expensing they'll be able to get off in a single year, for example. That makes a big difference.
Of course. Now, pardoning individuals involved in the January 6th riot has sparked controversy. How do you see this decision impacting Trump's standing within the party and the public?
I think it's something for the left to complain about, but as the president rightly points out, look at the people who caused the violence in Minneapolis and Seattle and Portland and Louisville during the Black Lives Matter riots, and how none of them went to jail. And in fact, the ones that were arrested got help from no less than Vice President Kamala Harris's political organization in raising bail. I think it's a tempest in the teapot. I'm not pleased that people who had violent exchanges with police officers or who did damage inside the Capitol building have had their sentences commuted or pardoned. But the fact is that many of the people who are either arrested or who are being sought did nothing wrong except attend the event and perhaps go into the building. And they have been hounded. They have been held without charge. They have been denied access to counsel. They have been denied speedy trials. Their access rights have been violated.